Hi, everyone. This is Brian Cox. I'm the President and Chief Innovations Officer here at Blaze Performance Solutions. And thank you guys so much for joining us. For those of you who are watching this on Facebook, unfortunately, we were not able to stream live today. That's okay. It'll still be up there. So whenever you guys get this, it should be just a few minutes and it'll be up there. But thanks, everyone, for participating today. I see we have some great participants here on the Zoom. And so if you have any questions, feel free to chat me in the chat box. I actually will have access to that today. And so feel free to go ahead and just let me know about that. So again, thank you again so much for joining us today. And one of the things that we talk about at the beginning of all of our webinars is our 2020 vision and what we really are driving towards with Blaze Performance Solutions, and that is to bridge the gap between strategy and results. Now, in this gap, right, there's lots of different things that could be there. There are lots of different reasons why you might be struggling in getting the results that you're looking for. And today, we're going to give one particular solution that is really the overview and the understanding of emotional intelligence in times of crisis. So let me talk about the purpose of why we're here. Today's webinar's purpose is for you to understand the basics of emotional intelligence and understand how to utilize each pillar to be more effective, especially in times of crisis. Now, right now, throughout the world, and especially here in the US, I know, because I'm feeling it, we are in a time of crisis. And I think that this is an amazing time for us to start continuing to the conversation around emotional intelligence, because you know what, it doesn't stop just because there's a crisis or a pandemic. In fact, I would say that by utilizing the key pillars of emotional intelligence, it will better weather you for the storm. And so I think this is a time for us to really be considering how can we improve and utilize our emotional intelligence in our day-to-day life, not just work, but life in general. And so I'm really excited to bring this to you today. So first, let's do this. Let's discuss the 5 pillars of emotional intelligence, right? And this is really, again, around growth in times of crisis. Number 1, we have self-awareness. And we'll go in depth in each of these throughout the rest of the webinar. But self-awareness, obviously, we know a lot about, right? Getting to know who you are, what your values are, right? What your triggers are, the things that come into you, knowing yourself. Then we come into self-management. Now, this is really the amazing after effect of once you know yourself, you know your values, your core, then being able to, and your emotions, being able to then manage your emotions. And I think that right now, being able to manage emotions in time of crisis is definitely going to be a big deal. Next, we have motivation. And in motivation, this is about what really motivates you and understanding it and using it for your benefit to maintain motivation throughout time. For empathy, this is really understanding other people, right? So if the first 3 are really internalized, it's really about the emotional intelligence of knowing yourself, of managing yourself, and of motivating yourself. We then move externally more so with how do you put yourself in someone else's shoes, understanding others, which then translates into the other outward-based EQ pillar, which is social skills, meaning how do you interact with others. So with that, guys, let's go ahead and get jumped right into self-awareness. So we're going to talk about a couple of keys with self-awareness. And again, all of this we'll try to take back to, you know, the time in our life where we are right now, because I think that it's very important for us to do that. But number 1, self-awareness is know your strengths and weaknesses with humility. Now, some people don't like to use the term weakness, so we can use the term opportunity if you want to, areas of opportunity, if you will. But self-awareness, one of the keys of this is being able to really know what are your real strengths and what your strengths are not as well. Now, with this, being able to take this and manage it within the time that we are now, it's an amazing time. For the first time, many of us are actually having more time away from work, to ourselves, maybe even some of us. Now, some of us, like me, again, 3 kids, 4 years and younger, maybe less time to myself than I've ever had. But for many of us, it might be more time to yourself. And so take that time to begin to assess what are your real strengths? What are the things that you're really great at? And what are the things that you're maybe not as great at? From there, we can start identifying, okay, where should you spend your time? On your strengths, on developing the areas of opportunity. And again, just from Strengths Finder and many other schools of thought, some would tell you, hey, you got to pick up those weak spots, and others would say you need to focus on your strengths. But for you, you can understand that and manage it yourself in the way that you feel is best. Next, here's a great little tip for improving your emotional intelligence with self-awareness. Start journaling and then analyzing your actions. But what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to look back in the past on the actions you've taken with negativity and regret. What we're really talking about is learning and understanding your emotions. So let's go back to this concept, emotional intelligence. It's not just about IQ, right? How much you know. With this, it's about how much can you know and understand yourself. Now, we'll talk about this a little bit later as well under self-management, but Many of us are going to be around people in close quarters more than we have been in a very long time. And I think it's very important for us right now to take some time and analyze the emotions that we're feeling. There very well may be times where you are frustrated with the environment of the world around us right now, frustrated with decisions being made by politicians, frustrated with, someone cooking something that smells bad in the kitchen and then the whole house smells bad. Who knows what it might be, right? But understanding and journaling down your emotions. Why do you feel the way you feel? This isn't just about understanding strengths. That is one level of it. But understanding why you feel what you feel. Once you understand why you feel it, then you can start to more effectively manage it and not let it be something that hinders you from success, but something that propels you to success. Next, this is one of my favorites. Get feedback. A great way to enhance your self-awareness is through gaining feedback. Now, there's lots of different things in the world that we see. In the workplace, many times we see things like 360 assessments, right? So my direct reports, my peers, and my boss will all give feedback on what I'm doing. One of the things that I think is very important, and I believe that David Williams or myself, one of us mentioned it in a webinar a week ago or 2 weeks ago, was around this concept of daily dinner table getting feedback on how the day went with your family. If you're going to be working from home effectively, how can you take the time to understand, hey, this is what worked well, this is what didn't. If we can get feedback on how our day is going, I think we also need to get feedback about how we respond through our emotions, how we handle our emotions. And this is easily done through conversation, right? Saying, hey, I know I didn't handle this that well. How do you think I could have, improved this? Or what are some areas that you think I could improve, in knowing myself? Do I have a blind spot? And this is the key term that we use quite a bit, is this blind spot. You don't know what you don't know. And so trying to find as many data points as possible to be able to increase your productivity, increase your emotional intelligence. That's how we do it. Excuse me. And finally, slow down. A great way to increase your self-awareness is to slow down. What we find is that so many times in the rat race, as they say, we don't take the time to really dive deep within ourselves. We don't take the time to understand our emotions, to understand why we respond the way that we do. Maybe we blame it very easily, right? We blame it on others. We blame it on our environment. We blame it on our background, the way we were raised, our DNA, okay? But now we have the time to stop and say, you know what? Proactively, I own this. My emotions are my emotions. And, I've heard people say before, and I think they say it the most whenever someone is angry at them, no one can make you mad but yourself. And it's like the last thing an angry person wants to hear. Like, not right now, buddy. Right now, you're making me mad. But the thought being really that our emotions are ours, and we control them, and we make the decision on how to respond. And by slowing down, we can make better decisions on how we respond to emotional stimuli. And so today, what I want you to remember about self-awareness, take the time, slow down, start understanding your strengths, your areas of opportunity. Make sure you take some time to journal. Whenever you have something that's frustrating, you have an emotion that's heavy in your heart at that moment, take the time to journal it down and then ask yourself the question, why do I feel the way I feel? Why did I respond the way I responded? And are you okay with it? And if you feel great about the way you responded, then excellent. That shows emotional intelligence, I believe. But if you're not happy with it, then that shows an area for growth that next time you can make a decision. Next time you can change the outcome. You don't have to operate the same way that you always have. And that's one of the powers of understanding self-awareness, especially in this time of crisis. Next, we go into self-management. So if we understand ourselves better, then we have to utilize that for something, right? We want to use it for good, hopefully, and we do that through self-management. So number one, I talk about knowing your operational compass. Excuse me. So what I mean by that is understanding what you would typically do, your natural behavior trait. How would you typically respond to a situation? As we learned in the previous slide, taking time to journal, understand your actions, your reactions more often, that gives them a chance in our self-management to understand what we would typically do. Now, the great thing about us as human beings is that we do not have to make the same decision every time. We do not have to react the same way every time. We have the ability to make a change and be different. And remember, if you want to see a change, you have to make a change. If you want to see a change in the way that your relationships are, the way that your time with your employees are, you want to be a better leader, then you're going to have to make a change and do things differently. You get the same results when you do the same things. So we're looking at how can you do it differently. So number one, we understand our operational compass. What do we typically do? How do we typically react? And then we follow that with, how do we want to react? What is it that we really want to do instead? And by being self-aware of that and understanding it, we can then make the decision to operate differently. Next, know your values and what's most important to you. So in self-management, as we think of it from the emotional intelligence perspective, what we really think about a lot is, obviously it's, managing your emotions, managing how you respond, managing how you react. But I think another piece of that is understanding deeply the why behind it. And it goes in, again, a lot of these will overlap with each other in certain ways, but understanding your values and what's most important to you, what type of person you want to be. And take it from all the different roles in your life that are important, right? What type of an employee do you want to be? What type of a leader do you want to be? What type of a husband, father, friend, partner, whatever it might be, the roles in your life that are most important, what are your values in those roles? What do you want to be? What legacy are you trying to leave in them? And once you know that, then you can start making decisions and actions. That's the key, the actions, by managing yourself and ensuring that you are making the right decisions and doing the right things that guide you along your values, what's most important to you, and along your operational compass. Next, hold yourself accountable. Blame will win you nothing. Oh my goodness, I love this one, right? Here's what I really want to go with, though. It's not just blaming others, and it's not just holding yourself accountable. I don't want you to shame yourself. I don't want you to blame others, okay? Two key points in this. Self-management is not about making yourself feel horrible about decisions you've made or things you've done. Self-management is about saying, I'm going to make better decisions every single day. So hold yourself accountable. Don't push your blame on someone else. Don't say that, hey, I only got mad because you did this and you did this and you. Well, one of the things that we know for sure is that whenever we start putting you statements into things, that it starts putting up defensive barriers with people. They don't want to engage with us because they know that it's going to be a negative outcome, because there's blaming. The counterpoint to that is the internal shaming that we do sometimes as well. And I'm guaranteeing that most of you have felt this at some point. I had an interesting thing happen to me. I can't remember when this was. This was probably years ago at this point. But I remember I was driving down the road, and I used to travel, so much for work. And it was nothing for me to do 6, 7, 8 hour drives instead of flying, just because it was almost a break even at that point. And excuse me, I remember I was driving and just kind of in intensive thought about life. And I thought back to something that I had done years before. I mean, this was probably almost a decade before. And I felt shame over how I had acted to this person. It was a decade before. I just felt horrible about it. And I remember that, and I was like, oh my goodness gracious, why am I feeling this way? Why am I doing this? And it's because I knew I had wronged someone. And guess what? That shame will continue to fester until you right the wrong. And eventually I had to call that person up, and I had to say, look, I was thinking about this. You probably don't even remember it. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. And it turns out they didn't even remember it, which was the funny thing. I was beating myself up over something they didn't even remember. But I got it off my chest, and I did something that was important, which is I apologized. And self-management, one of the great things you can do is you can apologize when you make a mistake. Don't shame yourself for years, but also don't place the blame on others and saying that they are the reason why that happened. Okay? So with that, we move into the final piece of self-management, which is pause before you react. Now, this goes in. You're going to notice that in a lot of these emotional intelligence pieces, there's going to be take time, pause, slow down. The reason for that is that we are better at responding effectively to our emotions whenever we take the time to process them. And so that's what this is really about. Before you go off and you say, oh, they said this and it made me angry, or whatever it might be, I want you to pause and then go back to your operational compass and your values. Is this the way you want to react? Is this the legacy you want to leave in reacting this way? Now, I take all of this into consideration with the current crisis. And I'll tell you, I'm experiencing this right now. This is a strain at times. I'm not used to being around my kids this much. And I love my kids, I do. But I also work from home, and trying to work from home while having 3 screaming children and other things going on and all the busyness in the world and all these different things, it can be hard because sometimes, I just need to get this work done. And I get so frustrated. It's so easy. And then I find myself wanting to snap and say, guys, could you just be quiet for a minute? Daddy's trying to work. And think about that. And I'm guilty. I've said that before. I'm trying to get better at it. But whenever you say that, what does that tell those kids? What did I tell my kids whenever I said that? I told them that work was more important than them. Now, I'm not saying that I just have to drop everything every time my kids want something. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there are ways to handle it without making someone else feel or giving someone else the potential to feel that they are not as important. This is where self-management comes in times of crisis. There are going to be times where you and your partner are going to feel stressed with each other. You're going to be snippy with each other. You're cooped up together for too long and you need your alone time, and someone might just snap, okay? And they might just say something that they shouldn't say. Self-management is about saying, before you get to that point, understand it, know your operational compass, know what you need in order to not do that. Maybe you need to say to the other person, to your partner, spouse, etc., hey, I need like 10 minutes of alone time. I just need to get my thoughts right. Or I need to go take a bath, or whatever it might be that you do to relax. Or I need to go outside. I need to take a walk around the backyard, whatever it might be. But it is your responsibility to take ownership for how you react. And there are going to be stressful times during this quarantine. For most people, maybe not everyone, maybe some of you are just amazing at handling it. Congratulations to you. For the rest of us, I'm going to struggle with it at times, and some of you are as well. And so we need to be prepared. One of the things I tell leaders about being prepared all the time is whenever you have to be prepared for everything, right? Otherwise, you react in an emotional way typically. And so I always bring up the example of, what are you going to do whenever someone doesn't do their job? Are you prepared for the conversation you're going to have? And I tie this back to self-management. Is that there are some people who say, well, I'm just a good leader, I'm a good talker. Whenever someone doesn't do it, I'll handle it. And many times what we find then is that people fly off the handle. They shoot from the hip. They say things they shouldn't say. It might be mean or rude or hurtful instead of actually getting down and fixing the problem. Self-management is about giving you the tools that you need to be able to stop, be purposeful and intentional in the things that you do and say, manage your emotions so that you can have positive outcomes even in conflict. And if you do these things, you can better manage those emotions, manage yourself throughout this process, and create better results even after all this is done with time of crisis. So next, we go into motivation. So motivation brings up something I love to talk about. And I may have mentioned it to some of you on the line before, but I love talking about this whole thing about whys and why not. So there's a big thing in the world right now talking about why. What's your why? And so many people there is that you got to start with why. And I agree. And it's a great book. Kudos to Simon Sinek. It's a wonderful book. But just as a devil's advocate, I always tell people, no one ever stopped because of their why, right? They stopped something because their why not is so much bigger than their why. So yes, you must have a why, and you need to know your why. But here's the thing. You need to know the things that could get in your way of success, your why not, and then ensure that your why is so big that no matter what comes at you, no matter what obstacles, burdens, stumbles may come, that why is big enough to overcome them. And so for motivators, I tell people, understand your why not. Why would you stop doing something? What would get in your way of being successful? Everybody has a why. Figure out your why not. What are the negative things that could get in your way, the negative self-talk? What are the things that you could tell yourself that might get in the way of you being successful or being more effective at something, right? And then whenever you figure out your why that motivates you, make sure that why is so big, so powerful that it could overcome any of the why nots that are there. And by doing that, that's one of the ways you can help keep yourself on track and motivated, because then whenever the tough times come, and right now in this crisis, I think we're feeling this, right? There's a lot of tough times around for people, whether it be in your personal life, I have a friend who is training for a marathon, and he's struggling right now because he is trying to stay at home. He's trying to stay in the house. And I think he said he did like 6 miles worth of jogs around his backyard the other day, which I find hilarious. But you have to understand that no matter what comes, no matter what happens, you need to identify a why that is so big that's going to take care of anything that gets in your way. Next, we talk about creating short-term and long-term goals. So we talk about this within motivation because internally, this is you. You must motivate yourself. Don't expect someone else to motivate you. Just like I tell people, don't expect anyone else to empower you. I'm not here to empower you. I might be here to open up your mind, your mindset, to where that you understand that you empower yourself and that you take those reins and you do it. The same with motivation. While I cannot motivate you, I can try to give you the tools for motivation. And to motivate yourself, one of the things you need is short-term and long-term goals. Lots of people like to talk about the 5-year plan. Well, I think that a lot of 5-year plans have just been thrown into a tailspin right now. I can feel pretty confident with that. A lot of 1-year plans, a lot of 6-month plans, a lot of 30-day plans have been thrown into a tailspin right now. And so while setting goals is amazingly important, and it is, we need to set those goals. Make sure that you have a varied amount. You need the short-term ones that you can handle right now. You need the long-term ones that are going to guide you over time. But the thing is, if you only have long-term goals, many times people who only set, in 1 year I'm going to do this, a year-long goal. They work on it for a few weeks, but then because the goal is so big, they don't continuously work on it every single day because it's just too big and it overwhelms them. And so we tell people also set short-term goals that are building up to achieving your long-term goals. And there's even a great piece in here about micro goals as well. And you can take your micro goals and say, for the next hour, I'm going to work on this, and it's going to help me achieve my short-term goal, and my short-term goal is going to help me achieve my long-term goal. You can motivate yourself through effective goal setting. Ineffective goal setting will actually break down your motivation. It'll stop you from actually wanting to do more. It'll turn you into saying someone who's like, oh, it's too big, I can't do it. A friend of mine wants to write a book. He's talked about it for years, and I mean years and years. And had this amazing idea for the book. I'm not going to go through the whole idea, but it's very sci-fi, very in-depth. Like, it's an amazing premise of the book. And it's a huge, amazing goal. And the reason why he has not written this book, the actual reason, is because all of the things in order to get a book of this scope, 200,000 word book, is just too overwhelming. And so he'll start researching a little bit, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know how I'm going to make this fit. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And then he beats himself up about it, gets sad about it. And then, 3 months later, he's like, oh, I'm going to try again. And then, boom, failure again, over and over and over. Whenever what needs to happen, and I've mentioned this multiple times, is this concept of the long-term goal of the book, the short-term goal maybe of the chapters, and the micro goals of the research to sit down and write today. I'm going to write for an hour today and get this done. The next piece is to know your motivators. Now, everyone is different. And I love talking about motivators with people because, we all have different ones. And some people say, hey, money's not a motivator. Well, it is a motivator, I would say, but typically it's a short-term motivator, meaning, it's going to motivate me for a short time, but it's not going to, push me for the long term. Other motivators might be, passion over something. It might be excitement. It might be just the joy of doing it. It might be using your intelligence. It might be, something you're really good at, so you love being able to flex your knowledge. It might be trivia. Who knows what it might be? But know the things that motivate you to get you moving. For me, one of my big motivators that I leverage constantly, is I want to be the best. Like, I want to be the best at microlearning. That's something I care about. I care so much about microlearning and gamification that I push myself to do that. And I say to myself on an almost daily basis, what did you do today to be the best? What did you do today to be the world's leading expert in microlearning? Did you learn something? Did you write something? Did you do something? Or did you just do nothing? And I know that every day I do nothing, I do not grow to be better in what I'm trying to do. And that motivates me. So it's a very internalized motivation. But you need to know your motivators in order to be able to actually motivate yourself, put those things in place, and be successful. The final thing I talk about is putting habits before results in motivation. Now, kind of an interesting topic here, and it goes along with goals. So many people are very results-oriented or results-focused. And what we find is that many times if you are only focused on the result, that it can become a little bit overwhelming. And you also aren't necessarily building the skills you need in order to be truly successful. What I say is put habits before results, meaning if you look at your goals, your big, it can be short-term, long-term goals, your big overarching goals you want for your life, work, personal, relationships, does not matter. Any goal. What are the habits it takes to achieve that goal? Do you have all of them set, and have you put them in every single day? One of the things I absolutely love about our Execution in Your Pocket platform is that it is not just about getting the results today. It's about building the habits every single day that we know for a fact will lead to success. Because anybody can get lucky once in a while and, have success. Anybody can do it. If you want to truly build a solid foundation of success, of results, of long-term, ongoing success, you need to daily build the habits it takes to get the results you want. Yes, have an eye on the results. Know what the results you want are, but you will get them by building habits, not just by trying to achieve a result. It's the same thing as trying to, it's like your GPS system, right? Habits are your GPS. And so right now I'm sitting in, Middle Tennessee here by Nashville. And if I needed to get to California, to the ocean, hey, I could do it with no GPS, no map, no anything. I would just go west, right? If it's morning time, the sun will be behind me. If it's afternoon, the sun will be in front of me. I keep going till I hit water, right? And if I end up in Canada, I'll go south. If I end up in Mexico, I'll go north. I'll get it. Okay, I will eventually get there. The thing is, I could get there much easier, much more simply with a GPS system. I could just plug in, boom, San Diego or whatever it might be. And I could absolutely just go there without any deviation or missed time. The same thing with habits and getting to results. You can get to the results you want, but how many twists and turns, missteps, side roads you're going to take to actually get to the results that you're looking for? By putting in the habits that will lead you there, that's your GPS system to guide you to success. So in motivation, we talked about examining your whys and why not. Make sure you're creating effective short-term and long-term goals. They also will be utilizing your motivators to make sure that you stick with them and focusing daily on the habits. And if you do that, then you can lead to a greater motivation within you. Now, to put this towards the crisis that we're in right now, just because we are in quarantine does not mean that your habits have to entirely change. In fact, now is a greater time than ever to start thinking about what are the habits you need to be more successful. When do you need to be waking up? What do you need to do when you wake up? What do you need to be reading? What do you need to be writing? What do you need to be doing? What habits can you build in the next 30 to 60 to 90 days while we're still in this that are going to set you up for success after we come out of the quarantine? What can you do now that will set you up for success then? Because now is the time, people. It is the time right now. While there is so many bad things, and I'm always pretty much a positive person. My friend Jim always tells me that I'm the most positive person he knows. There is a huge positive silver lining to all this, is that it allows us to get back to basics in many ways. And this amazingly huge basic we need is to get back to building the habits it takes to be successful. Utilize your motivators and make sure you are then getting to the results that you want. Next, we talk about empathy. So if the first three were much more inward focusing, while the last two also focus on you internally, your emotions, it's how you interact with the outside world. And empathy really is about putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Okay, being able to truly understand someone else. Now, I think that it's going to be very obvious where empathy is going to come into with the crisis we are now. We're going to need a lot of empathy. And by the way, on Thursday of this week, my wonderful business partner, David, and our VP of Sales, Steve Robinette, are going to be doing a webinar on here as well. And that one is going to be really talking about using empathy in social media. I was going to say, I don't know if you've looked on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, but there's a vast, what would be the term? A lack of empathy among many people right now. And I'll tell you, if you listen to people like Gary Vaynerchuk, who says that empathy is probably the number one skill that leaders need over the next decade. If you listen to other people like Warren Buffett, who have said many of the similar things, empathy is an important piece to be not just judgmental, but to understand others. And by the way, you can utilize empathy and still disagree with someone, but you can understand better where they are. Empathy is about you understanding others. And that's going to be a key piece as we talk about social skills, which is more about interacting with them. Empathy is about understanding others. A key piece for this also is about understanding your body language, not just the body language of the other person, understanding your own. How are you showing yourself to others? I've been given feedback in the past that a lot of times in meetings and just in general life, I'll kind of sit with my hands crossed or my arms crossed across my chest. And I have an issue where I'm cold most of the time. Like, I don't know why, but I'm just cold a lot of the time. And the reason why my arms are crossed is because it's comfortable and it keeps my hands warm under my elbows. It's a true story. But some people take that as me being disengaged, as not caring, as being frustrated, as being annoyed with them. But that's not the case. And so by getting that feedback and understanding, I now know that whenever someone comes to me and the emotions are high, they need someone to listen to them, I probably don't want to sit there with my arms crossed, because what I'm doing then is I'm signaling to them that they are not as important, that I'm not listening, or that I have a frustration with them in some way. And so if the result that you want from that interaction, where someone comes to you and they're upset, highly emotional in some way, shape, or form, and they need you to listen, then be aware of your body language to make sure that you are showcasing to that person that you are open and you are there for them. Next, be present in all conversations. And this one is one we're going to harp on for a little bit, guys. Right now, I understand we have a lot of things going on. We're working from home, many of us. We have family at home we're not used to having at home, kids around us that we're not used to having while we're working. So many things going on at the same time. We have the news on, we have a lot of stuff. I can tell you that it shows a great amount of empathy and understanding whenever you are truly present in a conversation. You know, if we take that from a work perspective, if you're listening to someone and you're also doing your email, are you really listening? From a multitasking perspective, you can do both things at one time. I can listen to someone and I can type an email. What I cannot do is I cannot do both of those things with 100% quality. Meaning, am I don't know, making mistakes in the email? That's fine. Or am I missing every couple of words from this person and I'm not really engaged in what they're saying? And they're going to say, what do you think about that? And you're like, oh, wait, what was that last thing you said? And they know immediately that you weren't listening. And by you not listening in that moment, they can interpret that as you don't care. And that's not what you want with your coworkers, your peers, your direct reports. It's not what you want with your family. Be present in conversation with people if you want to build your emotional intelligence. It shows that you care enough about that person that is standing in front of you to be there to listen. And sometimes, people, all that someone needs is just an ear that will listen to them. That can change a life. I talk a lot about changing lives, you know, in my personal life and the things we do and the stuff that we do here at Blaze. You can change a life today by listening. So many people feel like they're not heard, whether that be at work, and you've seen it as well. Disengaged employees feel like no one listens to them. It could be in your family, could be a relationship. If you want to improve not only the quality of the relationships you have at work and home, but also showcase, you know, emotional intelligence of empathy, be present in all conversations. Don't let your cell phone get in between you and the person you're talking to. While you may need to keep a 6-foot distance, the cell phone doesn't have to be in that 6 foot. Fair enough? And finally, in empathy, it's responding to feelings honestly. Now, whenever I say honestly, sometimes people say, well, that means I can be rude. Well, no, I'm not saying that. Whenever you're listening to someone, because with any interaction or communication, there's a listening phase and there's a response phase. In the response phase, I'm saying, yes, respond openly with your feelings, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, what your beliefs are, what your thoughts are, but it doesn't mean you have to be rude about it. You have to balance how, honest you are, right? And tell the truth. You always have to tell the truth. You have to balance how you say it with empathy. Meaning, are you saying it in a way that is going to just upset that person for no reason? Or are you saying it in a way that is going to get that point across to someone? And I mention this all the time. People talk about, well, I told them 5 times. I told them 5 times to do it. Okay, but did you tell them 5 times in a way where they could actually comprehend it, where they would understand it? And that's where I think that we lose a lot of times, is that we tell ourselves, oh, well, I told them. Well, they know how I feel. Well, do they really know how you feel in a way that they can understand, comprehend, and be able to actually, digest in their own life, to be able to understand where you're really coming from? Don't assume that someone can just understand you because you said something. Confirm that they understand it. Be honest in your communication. Respond to your feelings honestly. Don't mask them. Don't hide them. You'll build resentment if you hide them. But be honest with them, but show empathy while you show them. So with empathy, we make sure that we put ourselves in other people's shoes, that we are listening effectively and paying attention to our body language. And with that, we move into then social skills. So social skills in the realm of EQ, again, the first 3, very internally focused. Empathy, internally focused, but how to manage outwardly. And social skills then is about how do we then interact with other people in a highly emotionally intelligent way. And one way is this: to be a conflict resolver. Don't let it fester. So many times we see that conflicts become huge scale conflicts because we let it sit and fester over time. It might have been small and easy to deal with. It could have been an oversight or a slight, more accidental, but by not addressing it in the moment, it turns into a big blow up after months, weeks, years. And I'm sure we've seen this in the workplace before where the people harbor bad feelings for a long time and the other person may not even know it, right? That is not emotionally intelligent. That is passive aggressive. And passive aggressive is not one of the 5 pillars of emotional intelligence. So we have to let passive aggressive go and start learning how do we embrace our social skills. And one of the big ways is try to resolve conflicts, resolve them quickly, resolve them effectively, because if you don't, they will blow up into something else over time. Next, build rapport through listening and speaking honestly. Again, so much overlap between these, right? But in the social setting, making sure that you are listening effectively. That's how you build rapport. To increase your social skills in many ways can be to build relationships with others, build rapport with others. We do that most effectively whenever we take the time to truly listen to them and to respond honestly. Think about it. Have you ever known anyone in your life you're like, I really like that person because they're never going to lie to me. They're always going to tell me the truth. Even if I don't like it, they're going to tell me the truth. And yet sometimes we fear being open and honest because we're afraid that someone can't handle the truth. We have to assume that people are going to be adult and emotionally intelligent enough to handle the truth. You know, Jack Nicholson, you can't handle the truth. Well, we hope that you can handle the truth. Because in order for us to be as effective as possible in building and grooming our EQ, we have to make sure that we are not only listening, we are also speaking honestly and building the rapport with those that are around us. Pardon me. Point number 3 is to learn how to effectively praise others. Now, I use this a lot for work, but also for home. But what is it, as we remember we thought about earlier, knowing our motivators? What are other people's motivators? And that's where this really gets into. So the social skill building of understanding others' motivators means that you can interact more effectively with them. And so how do you want to praise them? You know, there are some people I've had that have worked for me in the past who they did not want to be praised in, you know, an open group setting. They did not want it. They wanted me to go to them in private, you know, say, thank you so much for doing this specific thing that you did. I just want you to know how much I really appreciate it. And if I gave them a gift card or money or a raise or whatever, hey, great. But they craved that one-on-one interaction and me being very specific about exactly what it was that they did. I've had other people that I've worked for who, well, they might appreciate that one-on-one thing. What they really want is they want me to stand up in front of the entire company and tell them how they're the best thing since sliced bread. That's what they were looking for, I think. And so understand what it is to praise people effectively. And what that is what's going to motivate them. Is it, you know, closed door private one-on-one praise? Is it group praise? And then think about this from your relationships as well, or your home life, in this crisis, the people you're going to be with. What's going to effectively motivate the people around you? You know, with your partner, spouse, you know, kids, what is going to actually get them to be motivated to do the things that they need to do? How can you leverage your emotional intelligence, build rapport, and then actually build the motivators for them to actually be engaged in what's going on? It's going to be a difficult time for many people. I like to say all, but maybe there's some that are really, you know, going to be great with this. Who knows? But I think many of us are going to have some struggles during the next couple of weeks and months. Maybe we've already had some. This is an excellent time for us to stop, pause, be thoughtful, purposeful, and intentional, and learn how to listen to others more effectively, how to praise others, how to build their motivators, and how to actually inspire others to get the best out of them. Isn't that a key of a great leader? To inspire others and get their best? You do that through building and utilizing the keys and the pillars of emotional intelligence. And finally, in social skills, just a big tip here at the end is to take time right now to still network and interact with others, even if it has to be digitally. I understand that we're not going to be in contact with as many people face-to-face as we were. There aren't as many dinners out, which I'm going to miss. There aren't as many lunch meetings, which I'm going to miss. And so how do we still connect and network with others, even if we cannot do it face-to-face? And while it may not be the exact same, everyone is in the same boat right now. We're all feeling the same way. And so taking the time to reach out and say, hey, I know we can't have a typical lunch meeting, but, you know, would you be interested in still having a meeting, you know, around that time? In fact, this is funny. Whenever I used to travel, you know, full time, my wife and I would have dinners some nights via FaceTime. I'd be in a hotel, I'd be in a Marriott in, you know, I don't know, Tucson, and she'd be at home in Tennessee. and at different times, different hours, everything else. But we would FaceTime. I'd have my iPad set up, and we'd look at each other and we'd have dinner. And sometimes, you know what? That was what I really needed to get through a long week of travel. And it was great. And it built a connection. We had the social time together. While it was not the ideal scenario, it was the ideal scenario for what we were in that moment, right? And we were taking the time to be purposeful, thoughtful, and intentional to do it. So maybe think about this. Is there a client maybe, if you're in sales, is there a client that might want to have a FaceTime lunch meeting? You know, a client you haven't met in a long time. Is there, you know, a family member who you might not be able to see, but you can still FaceTime and talk with them? Find a way to interact with your employees. Make sure you're taking the time, your team members, peers, etc. Don't just expect that the text messaging system or the instant messaging system on your computer is going to be good enough. Pick up the phone, have a conversation, maybe have a video call. See what it might take to help build a network and also interact more effectively with others, even though you can only do it digitally for the most part right now. And so today, everyone, we have talked about the 5 pillars of emotional intelligence. We have talked about self-awareness, getting to know yourself, your emotions, understanding them more effectively. Self-management, how to manage those emotions and actually be able to have better outcomes with them. How to motivate ourselves and understand our motivators so we can get the best out of us every day. We've also discussed empathy and how to put ourselves in other people's shoes and be able to interact more effectively there and build our EQ, as well as our social skills and how we can interact more effectively, even though it has to be digital. And right now, everyone, I know for a fact that there are many people out there who are struggling with what's going on. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of, you know, tense emotion, and some of that's going to bubble over. I highly recommend to everyone on this call and everyone that's watching this, take the time to pause, understand your emotions, understand why you feel how you feel, and think about, is that emotion serving you right now? Is it serving a good purpose in you, or is it serving a negative purpose? And then you have to utilize emotional intelligence and growth to be able to take that negative emotion, flip it on its head, say, you do not serve me anymore. I need to be over here because I'm not going to let this crisis hold me down. I'm not going to let any of this stuff get in the way of my happiness, of my joy, and of my success. This is just one moment of crisis in time. And there will be many people who let this define them for a large amount of time, maybe for a lot of their life, who knows? I am not going to allow that to happen to me. And one of my goals is to be able to give other people the tips and tricks and tools to empower themselves to ensure it doesn't happen to them either. And so make sure that you understand where you are emotionally, understand where you want to be emotionally, and make sure that you are pursuing the right path. So guys, with that, thank you so much. Again, I'm Brian Cox with Blaze Performance Solutions. If you have any questions, you want to find out more, you want to find out about some of our webinars or Execution in Your Pocket or some of our great tools that we have, feel free to reach out to us at info@bps3keys.com. I feel like I have a chat. Hold on. Is there a chat? I think there is. Oh, Maggie King. No, thank you, Maggie. Thank you so much. Of course, this came out of the mode I wanted it in. But you can contact us at info@bps3keys.com. Feel free to let us know any questions you might have. And if you just want to reach out and ask questions around the content, we're always more than happy to give you any info that we can. So guys, thank you so much, and I wish you the best in bridging the gap today. Have a great day, everyone.